The first question that we have that came in is, how do you think the Affordable Health Care Act, better known as Obamacare, affects your business, and what impact do you think it will have on the Mesquite economy as a whole?
Well, I'll take this starting out. Obviously, this is an issue that you hear a lot of things nationally, whether it's going to be good in some cases or bad in other cases. But any way you look at it, it's something that I think every business in the country is going to have to examine, no matter what size they are, to see where it trickles down to them and how it's affected. What we know so far is, at least for my team, the last 3 or 4 months since the election, has spent a great deal of time researching and trying to get answers. And to be honest with everyone in the room, we got multiple different answers from different folks, and that's not a good thing. So we need to get information. And what we're learning from a golf industry perspective, we fall in at Wolf Creek, the category of the 50 full-time employees versus the part-time, and whether you fit under the Obamacare fine scenario where you have to have so many employees. If you're above the 50, you can potentially be fined. So the first thing we always do in our team is we examine, why would Obamacare be an issue for a business like us at Wolf Creek Golf Club? Well, I try to explain it to our employees in a much broader sense. I look at it and say, we have most of the businesses in this country rely on some sort of commercialized financial credit. And in that process, you look at, the bank comes to you and says, it's not just like you pay the mortgage and the principal every month and you're okay. In a commercial loan, you have things called, you have to actually show a profit margin. That's called debt service cover ratio. And so, since the recession has happened, with a lot of the laws that have been passed in Washington, that is actually, the coverage ratio that you used to be able to do was usually anywhere from 1.15 to 1.25, but now in most cases you're up to, depending on the category, you're into 1.50. So that means in a bad economy, you have to increase your profit margin, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. But the banks are frightened because they're being audited. So what does this happen with, why it concerns the golf industry, which is a big part of what we face here in Mesquite, because we have a lot of golf courses in a small community. Many businesses are struggling as it is today, and now we're looking at, in essence, a different operating expense that's coming to the bottom line. And if that becomes a $50,000 to $100,000 expense to a business, that is going to put pressure on your debt service cover ratio. And so, the national, there hasn't been a lot of great explanation on this, but internally this is always a concern for a business like us, because we want to be in good standing with our lender and do the right thing under the covenants that we sign on loans. So it puts pressure on you to look at whether you're going to add, if you want to add another person full-time, or you're going to examine that aspect of it. Compared to, do you give that part-time employee some more hours, and give the part-time employee more hours, potentially pushing him into another full-time status. So that's the first thing, that's why. The second thing is just the confusion of the rules and the time that the staff it takes to basically get your staff to research, spend the time, and understand what all the penalties are. The bottom line in all of this is that this is going to be an issue that we're all going to have to deal with. Some folks aren't going to have to deal with this at a lower level where it directly impacts them, but I think the golf industry here is going to have to examine to where it fits in. And one of the things that I think in a forum like this, I've been reading many times over the last, how can the chamber help businesses? How can the city council help businesses? What ways can we cost cut and save some people some money without giving some of our own money, which we don't really have, we're short of these days? Well, this is a great example of an idea that maybe this city and the chamber come together and host a forum and invite experts from the health and care industry and have some of the folks that are in the golf industry be a panel and bring different businesses to explain the rules. A lot of these rules have yet to even be written and set in stone of how they're going to be implemented, but unfortunately the fines start in 2014. The government apparently has hired 13,000 new IRS agents, and they will be well versed in healthcare. And so these are issues when you're in a business, you don't plan just tomorrow, you try to plan 6 to 12 months and out. So I pretend not to be an Obamacare expert. I don't have all of the rules. I have a team here at Wolf Creek, and we have other businesses in northern Nevada, and we are examining it to our best of our ability. But I think it's one area, in my opinion, that the city and the chamber can come together and help a lot of businesses, including ours, to learn more about the law.
Can I ask out there, how many of you raise your hand if you're involved in small business? Okay, so a large majority. I should know more, but Corey explained that I think unfortunately the regulations haven't been written. And so I'm not going to talk too much, but just saying that I think that no one knows. And for us, we're a larger business, so a lot of our existing healthcare programs already qualify for the Obamacare. But the whole thing is, we don't know how many more people we're going to have covering, and which and then if that effect will be businesses moving actually away from insurance. I mean, there's a lot of if the general manager of Walmart was here, I'd ask, because I've heard that there are a lot of businesses that with a robust federal program, what they would rather do is just have all their employees go to that and simplify their lives and simplify their businesses. So instead of spending all that time worrying about healthcare, they say let the government take care of that, and we'll just focus on the retail business we know, and that could have significant impact. So it's just something that we're really watching. We know that it's going to be more expensive, but long term, I think there's still a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, I would say that from what Greg's saying is absolutely correct. There's a lot of long-term unknowns at this point, and that's partly the reason that there's a little bit of frustration in the research that we're doing early on. Having said that, I do believe that it's important that the business community gets as much information as possible, because I think what I know we're going to try to do is educate the people that work for us on the new healthcare law, how it impacts each and every individual who works for us, and understanding things on their paychecks that they might not see before. And I think education is very helpful in a situation where a lot of people will say, gosh, I didn't realize this was coming down the pike, or hey, maybe this is a good thing, or vice versa. And I think I'm a real big believer in communicating with the people that you work with on a daily basis. And I think that's something that as a community we can do pretty well to be ahead of the curve, so to speak.
It's a very complicated question. Is there any follow-up questions with that? Any? Okay. We'll move on to, okay.
Does Wolf Creek Golf Course, or whatever your corporation or corporate entity is, not currently provide health care for your full-time employees?
I think one of our challenges at Wolf Creek is that we find we have a situation where we have employees, for example, that are in multiple states. And so when we went to group carriers, we've had a difficult time getting the kind of care that I think that we would like to provide. So you have people that are Utah-based, Arizona-based, and Nevada-based. And so we do the best we can. We're still researching. We have a program, but in our opinion, we believe that we wish we could offer even a better plan for our folks. And we tried. I mean, it's definitely been, but one of the things we run into constantly is different employees in different states and where you can get someone to cover. It's been the part of the problem. I think that's one of the issues, for example, in the Obamacare law, is one of the things, we had a meeting with our outside CPA firm on our global companies about 2 weeks ago up in Reno, and one of the things that was interesting was just the notification and to be able to educate each employee that you have on each of the state exchanges. And again, I don't pretend to be a healthcare expert. And so I said, what does that mean? That means that you have to become an expert on Utah, Nevada, Arizona, whether they're in, whether they're out, I mean, in our case. And so those things might at the end of the day not cost us any hard dollars, but the amount of time in a small company, I mean, I know people might view Wolf Creek as a big business in this community, But in reality, we're not Apple Computer or IBM. We have, globally, we have 100+ employees. We have another company that works, but just understanding that is taking a lot of time away from our normal business, daily business operations. And that's why I go back to the idea of, say, hey, I'm in a very similar position as somebody, in Mesquite that's, looking at it, trying to understand the same things. It's reaching out to their accountant, reaching out to their healthcare broker, insurance broker. And I think that's one way to save, money is maybe we can have some people that for free that will come up here. We just provide them a meal and a panel, and people can say, hey, here's the law, here's how it affects you from a business perspective. I'm not talking about necessarily the type of care you're going to get. I'm talking about really from a business perspective of how it affects you. And where I think the golf industry has a challenge is, and we've been, Kathy Bussman, who's my controller here at Wolf Creek, and our global controller for our businesses, and they've done, and Shauna Cuddy's, who one of our HR gals, they've been researching this, and it's just trying to understand how you account to a person who's a full-time equivalent. We've seen 2 or 3 different scenarios with no definitive, from 2 or 3 different sources, trying to figure out how we even count what a full-time employee is. And yet this law is coming down the pike in less than a year. And so if you're a small business like us, or if you're a golf course that has seasonal employees, you want to have that ability, time to plan. You want to be able to communicate to the people that work for you every day and say, what it is that you need. And so, I don't, as a personal note, I think that obviously we'd love to offer a ton of affordable health care, but where we sit in Mesquite, we have challenges just on our location because many of our employees live in Arizona, and Utah, and that helps you, but these are the challenges we face.
Yeah, one other thing. About 40% of our population is 40 years or older. A lot of us are grandparents. My 21-year-old granddaughter has ovarian cancer, and she wasn't on my daughter's insurance policy, and it's guaranteed by Obamacare. We would probably be put in that bill, and it's going to be very expensive. So there's another side to this argument besides the business side.
Well, again, I'm not making a political statement. Being a business forum, what I'm trying to say are what are the challenges. The question was, what are the challenges that you face as a business to be functional? Let me be clear. Everyone's going to have their own reasonable, but at the same time, these are the things that are coming down the pipe. These are the things when we're going to our lender and they're saying, why is your operating expense up $100,000? They may not, and they're looking at you trying to perform under their loan. These are the challenges that we have. Whether you like that or not, that's just a fact of reality. And that's not a statement on whether we should have a national health care plan. These are the things that we're having to deal with, and how do we explain those costs as a business owner to the people that work and say, hey, here's what we're dealing with.
Thank you. Let's move on to question number 2, and then we'll take some more from the audience. Did you have a follow-up?
Well, yeah, I just had a question. You said it'd be nice if someone came to town that could hold a forum and explain the ins and outs of it. Is that just, it would be nice, or is that something that's actually being worked on?
Are you? Since November, we have spent a great deal of time trying to first go to the folks. They say, call your healthcare insurance broker. They've got the answers. Then we went to our CPA that handles all of our businesses globally. And again, in my research, we haven't gotten consistent answers. And then for example, one of the tenants, we have a business in Reno, one of our tenants is United Healthcare. And we visited them. They have about 4,000 square feet we leased to them, and they said, look, we are working on this issue and how we explain this, every day since the new year started. And I think like in any new law, I'm sure there'll be modifications as changes. As a business owner, and this, and again, I'm speaking as a business owner and the challenges we face, I think that it's important that, as we go through our planning and trying to be a business and be stabilized here, that I think it would be beneficial for us to, I'm making a suggestion, if it's possible, to have at some point, maybe later in the spring, to have, a forum and bring experts in. Because I'm the type of person that will know what I know and know what I don't know. And I don't pretend to be a healthcare expert. I didn't go to school, I'm not a healthcare expert, but I clearly don't want to be in violation of a fine either, and I want to be able to explain to the people who work for us, you know, if there are changes, what they are, so we can do the right thing by the people who work for us.
Vicki, I'd love another question.
Okay.
Can I make one comment, please? My name is Barbara Stallone, and my husband John and I are partners with the Human Resource Umbrella, and we are chamber members. And last October, our strategic partner for healthcare benefits, National Healthcare Access out of Vegas, came and we did a brown bag in October for chamber members. There were 7 participants at that time. But if you'd like, we'd be happy to invite them to come back again and do a brown bag where these gentlemen could come and get the latest information on what Obamacare means to businesses.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you.
Let's look at that. Let's move on to question number 2.